This is Optimal Finance Daily, episode 2070. Are you feeling lucky? The Two Schools of Retirement Income, Part 2, by Darrow Kirkpatrick of CanIRetireYet.com. And I'm your host and personal finance enthusiast, Diana Merriam. Today's post is actually a continuation from yesterday, so if you're new here, it'd be best to listen to yesterday's episode first. But if you're all caught up, let's hear Part 2 and continue optimizing your life. Are you feeling lucky? The Two Schools of Retirement Income, Part 2, by Darrow Kirkpatrick of CanIRetireYet.com. The most important distinction, risk management. The financial industry, whether insurance agents or investment advisors, would like you to believe the retirement income debate comes down to security, safety first, versus upside, probability based. You're asked to choose between playing it safe or maximizing your retirement lifestyle. In fact, framing the debate that way is a distraction. Michael Kitches points out, quote, "The real distinction is whether market and longevity risk is transferred or retained, and if retained, how those risks are managed or avoided," end quote. In other words, the real difference isn't between playing it safe and gambling. There is risk either way. Insurers speak of risk transfer. In reality, the risk never disappears. It's a question of who has the job of monitoring and managing it. So the real difference between the retirement income schools lies in who manages the risk, you and your portfolio manager, or an insurance company. And it should come as no surprise that if you choose to have someone else manage the risk, you have to pay them to do that job. As with asset allocation, the most important factor in choosing a retirement income strategy may be understanding which suits your temperament best. Who should manage the risk, you or somebody else? Do-it-yourselfers will likely favor the probability-based approach, and those without financial experience will likely favor safety first. Doing it yourself, paying for volatility. Admittedly, do-it-yourselfers have the harder job. If you take that on, you'll need some appreciation for the risk and return of stocks over the long term. I've already referenced a study showing that in the last 60 plus years, the stock market has never gone for any 20-year period without turning at least a 6% profit annualized. But experts can look at the same statistics and come to different conclusions. Some argue that individuals can't rely on averages because we only get a single chance at retirement. They'll go on to point out that we are in unprecedented market conditions with low interest rates and high valuations. And they'll say that we can't count on historical averages going forward. This is scary stuff that might send more than a few do-it-yourselfers to the safety first camp, myself included, at least later in retirement. Do-it-yourselfers also need a healthy respect for sequence of returns risk. As mentioned, this is the mathematical reality that reduces the returns on stocks in a distribution portfolio. In essence, a portfolio that you must withdraw from continually in retirement performs differently from one you can leave alone to accumulate. The problem stems from the impact of those regular withdrawals when the market's down. They rob you of principal that would have provided future earnings. Jim Otar, in his comprehensive book on retirement planning, Unveiling the Retirement Myth, calls this the time value of fluctuations, or TVF. He offers a formula based on historical data to compute its value as a function of the time span. For 20 years, his TVF is about 2.2%. For 30 years, it's about 1.6%. So when living off a portfolio in retirement, at minimum, you must reduce your expected average long-term stock market returns by at least a percentage point or two to account for sequence of returns risk. This volatility penalty sounds like a big mark against long-term stock holding, and it is, but it's not a knockout punch compared to the alternative, annuities backed by a bond portfolio. Bonds, being less risky, are near certain to underperform stocks over the long term, and generally, bonds underperform stocks by much more than the costs associated with sequence of returns risk. Finding your mix. Supposedly, if you can't handle a small chance of running low in retirement, then you belong to the safety first camp. If you can roll the dice and still sleep at night, then you're in the probability-based school. But that's a simplistic formula. These two categories are useful tools for retirement planning, but neither represents the reality of how retirees live their lives. You don't blindly commit your financial success to a single throw of the dice early in retirement. Rather, retirement finances are an ongoing process. If you've decided that your retirement lifestyle will be more a function of market returns than insurance company payments, then you're certainly going to adjust that lifestyle if the market doesn't behave as expected. This is our strategy. We're currently treading water in the probability-based pool, and I expect that to continue for another 10 years. Then we'll likely pull the trigger on a partial safety-first solution in our 60s by purchasing annuities with a portion of our assets. Why are we doing it this way? Generally speaking, the safety-first approach is irreversible. Once you buy an annuity, you own that decision for life. The probability-based approach is more flexible. Yes, you must be prepared to cut spending if needed, but you can also take advantage of any upside that appears. In the first half decade of our retirement, our assets have done a little better than expected, and we've chosen to spend a little more. We have the health to enjoy that spending and the ability to cut back or generate more income if needed. In later years, our expenses will probably fall naturally. If not, we may need to cut back. We are okay with that. Had we already chosen safety first and annuitized, we would have locked in a more restricted lifestyle that could have left us regretting our 50s. Probability-based and safety-first label the extremes in retirement planning. As in other areas of life, you'll do well to avoid those extremes and find the compromise path that's right for you. Rather than picking sides, many retirees will be best served by diversifying their strategies to create a hybrid retirement income solution. Understand your own temperament and finances, then choose your own best mix and timing. Are you feeling lucky? It was a great line for Clint Eastwood, but it's the wrong question for retirement planning. You just listened to part 2 of the post titled, Are You Feeling Lucky? The Two Schools of Retirement Income by Darrow Kirkpatrick of CanIRetireYet.com. When talking to my friends who are actively drawing down from their portfolios, the theme I keep hearing over and over again is the need to be flexible. It's nearly impossible to come up with a drawdown strategy for the rest of your life because you'll never be able to accurately predict right now what your expenses are going to be or what the market will be doing 30 years from now. Financial modeling and planning is based on a lot of assumptions, and there is inherent uncertainty baked into the process. That reality makes people very uncomfortable, so opting for something like an annuity could feel safer. But I think Darrow did a great job of explaining why that isn't necessarily true. And if I've learned anything from my retired friends, it's that it's possible to become comfortable with uncertainty while also diligently planning for the future. It boils down to flexibility, especially if you retire young. You must be open to the potential that you'll need to earn money in some way in the future, but you'll likely be in the financial position to be super picky about how you earn that money. You must be open to reducing your expenses or making adjustments or going back to the drawing board and reassessing your plan B, C, and D. Your financial security is not only found in your investment portfolio, it's also in your intelligence, curiosity, and access to different tools and solutions. In the face of an uncertain future, it's possible to set yourself up to pull different levers at different times depending on what the situation calls for. And that's another episode of Optimal Finance Daily in the books. I'll be back with more posts for you tomorrow, so I'll see you there where your optimal life awaits.